Thanks, the gentleman. The chair now recognizes Representative Holmes Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Griswold, it looks like we've got a big double problem. We've got a worsening climate crisis, and we've got insufficient funds in the disaster relief funds. In my district, the District of Columbia, 13 public assistance projects totaling $7 million have been put on pause, as well as $190,000 hazard mitigation project also on pause. It's critical that we replenish the disaster relief fund as soon as possible. Could you speak to the impact on communities and disaster survivors if Congress does not pass supplemental funding for the disaster relief fund?
Representative Norton, right now we are closely watching, the draw on the disaster relief fund, and want to ensure that we always have enough funding to support those life-sustaining activities that need to happen, which means many of the projects like you described, our obligation and our ability to reimburse those jurisdictions is on hold. The largest impact on that is their ability to continue with new projects until they can get reimbursed for the work that they've already done, and that will delay these communities and their ability to continue to recover. Absent a supplemental, this just means that we are going to be that much farther behind with what is appropriated or what is recommended in the President's budget for fiscal year 24, and will further delay our ability to continue these long-term recovery projects in the months ahead.
In your testimony, you emphasized the need for up-to-date disaster-resistant building codes. This issue concerns the residents of my district, the District of Columbia, which hosts a large number of of historic buildings. In what ways can FEMA aid in pre-disaster mitigation and resiliency of historic buildings?
One of the programs that I am very excited and proud of is our direct technical assistance program that we're doing under our BRIC mitigation program, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, where we are going into communities and helping them envision what types of mitigation projects that they can do, and helping them think through what maybe they hadn't thought of before. And we've had great success in supporting a number of communities across the nation to help them design and develop mitigation projects that are going to help protect their communities, especially communities that have such historic nature. And we would be happy to work with you in better understanding some of the communities that you feel might need this type of technical assistance. I mean, we can work with you to try to offer that.
I would appreciate that, because that's a special problem here in the nation's capital. Finally, we in the District of Columbia have seen extreme heat. Earlier this month, temperatures soared to at least 97 degrees for 5 straight days, breaking all historic records. How does FEMA help state and local governments respond to extreme heat?
One of the best things that FEMA does to help communities battle the impacts of extreme heat is through preparedness as well as mitigation. On preparedness, what we have done this year is we launched our Summer Ready campaign to help individuals and communities understand the things that they can do to help protect their families that are experiencing extreme heat. But we also know that we have to help communities build resilient infrastructure to help support that, whether that is making sure that they have generators for cooling centers or white roofs to help reduce the heat inside buildings, or adding green areas. Our mitigation programs can also be used to help mitigate the impacts of extreme heat for the future events that we're going to see.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Chair thanks the gentlelady. The chair now recognizes Jennifer Gonzalez Colon from Puerto Rico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing us together for this hearing. and thanks to the administrator for actually being here to answer many questions. In my case, tomorrow is going to be the 6th anniversary of Hurricane Irma Maria in Puerto Rico. And we're still in the process of approving and performing recovery work for municipalities, non-for-profits, faith institutions, individuals, and many others. The recovery of the electric power grid of the island is still mostly in the planning stages, which is one of the issues that I'm most concerned with. And there's been a historic funding, but there's a very real fear that between delays and cost increase, there will be a missed opportunity and work that was promised and will not get done. To that end, I know that the FEMA recovery page indicates that between all the various disasters in the past few years in the island, FEMA public assistance has allocated and obligated $45 billion for Puerto Rico, almost all out of the disaster relief funds, of which $19 billion has been outlaid. That is transferred from FEMA accounts to the accounts of the entities that are going to be responsible for the work. And on the other hand, FEMA announced $31 billion for public assistance projects, and Core 3, the obligation is near $1.9 billion. But because of most of municipalities or counties on the island, non-for-profits do not have cash in hand or credit to start work before reimbursement, the local institution, Core 3, established a working capital advance system providing $1.2 billion for 38 agencies and municipalities and non-for-profits. However, yesterday in local press in Puerto Rico, reports that Core 3 announced that as many as 2/3 of those entities will have to return those advances due to not being able to have evidence of the use after a year, and that FEMA is aware and will get a report on this specific week. So to that end, I'm representing the island, so I would love to have a copy of that report that you promised, or at least it's been said that FEMA promised to have a report on that relation of the funds between FEMA and Core 3. As well, the subcommittee of oversight should have that report. My question, Administrator, does your agency have your own record on how much has been actually dispersed to Puerto Rico?
Representative Gonzalez-Colon, we are extremely committed into helping Puerto Rico recover. And since I have taken this position, I have met many times with Governor Pierluisi, and my team is still embedded in Puerto Rico.
Do you have the amount that is being dispersed?
And we absolutely have the amount. And since I have taken this position, we have funded over 10,600 projects that total $30 billion. This is 2,800 projects that have begun construction across Puerto Rico and 1,800 that have been completed. Prior to me coming into this position, there were only 81 projects that had been completed.
I've been here
so we've
all
had
these
a
years.
tremendous increase in the progress that we're seeing across Puerto Rico.
What I would love, because there's a lot of data in numbers and projects and entities that are receiving the funds. If you can provide a committee information about where we are with the latest update of those funds for not just the municipalities, Core 3, and the electrical grid on the island, which is one of the major issues. And how many projects are right now still pending for approval or disbursement from FEMA? Because we got the same issue with the local agencies, which is a completely different process. Another issue that for me is important is with the difference with the section 428 and 406, the cost of inflation for many of those projects has come up. And projects that were announced or with funding in 2018 now may be bigger. As an example, the hospital in Vieques, it was originally $59 million and now it's $85 million. So we got many projects like that that may not have the full amount of resources to finish. And that will happen with electrical grid on the island. I know my time is going to expire, but I would like the committee to have the precise data regarding the planning stages of the electrical grid on the island, how much is being dispersed, when do you expect that we actually have some construction, or delivery of the upgrades of the local plants on the island, which is one of the biggest issues and the biggest reasons the Congress did approve more than $11 billion that are not being used. And that is not your fault. But people of Puerto Rico have been waiting for 6 years. And now the local agencies are telling you not to use power for a week because we don't have enough power to cover the whole island when the funds are being assigned. So having said that, I will provide the committee as well with a list of questions regarding this. And I will hope that the FEMA administrator can provide that to the committee and as well to our office. With that,
We'll
thank
be
you,
happy to
Administrator.
provide you answers for the record.
I yield back.
Chair thanks the gentlewoman, and the chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Huffman.
I thank the chair. Administrator Criswell, I want to spend my time asking you about something that is really at the core of FEMA's work, and that is the question of who gets FEMA disaster relief and who doesn't. And let me first say that I am a big believer in the mission of your agency. I think it's one of the great things that our federal government does to make sure that that FEMA disaster relief is there for devastated communities, no matter where they are, no matter what their politics are. And I want to commend you and your colleagues for the dedication that you bring to this critical work. I represent the North Bay and the North Coast of California, so I've seen firsthand what a difference that disaster relief can make for devastated communities. But I have also seen what happens when there is a devastating natural disaster that doesn't quite trigger FEMA disaster relief, and I've seen how inequitable that can be. My district includes a lot of rural, less affluent communities as well. And we have an equity problem when it comes to this mechanism. We leave a lot of rural, less affluent communities behind, and with the climate crisis bringing us more and bigger disasters, we really need to tackle this equity problem now to get ahead of it. So I told you a little about my district. We've got earthquakes, we've got tsunamis, we've got wildfires. It is sort of the poster child for this problem. Because FEMA's arbitrary and inflexible financial damage threshold can leave devastated communities behind. I'll give you an example. In 2017, the Helena fire burned 72 homes in Junction City, Trinity County, one of the smallest, poorest rural counties in California. That took out 15% of the county's housing stock, 15%. Of a county that has modest homes, so the property values were not high enough to reach the threshold. And of course, the county government lacks resources. This is a struggling community. And so they didn't get that FEMA disaster relief. In December 2022, a 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck the small town of Rio Dell in Humboldt County. Took out about 25% of the city's housing stock. Estimated $26 million in overall damage, a total of $35 million in damage to the county. But again, this is a rural, struggling county, didn't meet the threshold. You know, if you took the same disaster and it happened in an affluent place, Pebble Beach, any number of other places, maybe took out a small fraction of the homes, you'd have no problem triggering federal disaster relief. But these communities were left without that support. The flip side of that, in 2011, there was a massive earthquake in Japan that triggered a tsunami that just wrecked the Crescent City Harbor in Del Norte County in my district. The damage was about $50 million, again, just short of the threshold to get disaster relief. But we got lucky because that same tsunami also hit a harbor in Santa Cruz, further south in the state, where some very fancy yachts were parked. And because those yachts enabled the damage tally to go a little higher, Crescent City did qualify for federal disaster relief. But imagine if some of those fancy boats had not been parked in the harbor at that time, we would have been left with nothing. So, Administrator Criswell, it seems to me that this is fundamentally unfair. And again, with more disasters coming, we really need to provide more flexible, equitable ways for devastated communities to qualify for federal disaster relief from FEMA, and my staff will be presenting you with a letter today. I'm asking you to work with us on this important issue. I believe you have existing authority that would let you do a rulemaking to provide that flexibility and equity. But if you need new authority, additional authority, I hope you will please let us know, and we will get to work to make it happen. Let me just leave it there and ask for your response, and I'm really hoping to hear a commitment to work with me on this critical issue.
Representative, you make some very good points, and it really does show why one of my priorities has been equitably delivering our programs. When it comes to declaring a disaster, we have a number of factors that we take into consideration, whether the state has the capacity to support it, not just the local jurisdictions, but also the amount of insurance and the amount of damage. And it can be very complex. And that is why we are continuing to work on ways that we can improve the way we're delivering our programs, but also better understand the barriers that communities, just as you mentioned, are experiencing to being able to get the assistance that they need in order to properly recover from these disasters. And so you have my commitment to continue to find ways that we can improve the way we're delivering our programs and ensuring that everybody who is eligible for our programs has access to that assistance.
All right, thank you. Yield back.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair now recognizes the vice chair of the subcommittee, gentlelady from Oregon, Representative Chavez-Turine.
Thank you, Chairman. It's nice to meet you. I know we have not officially met, but as a new member of Congress, I'm grateful that you're here today to answer the questions that we have. So, Administrator Criswell, given your background at FEMA and in Colorado as a firefighter and a fire chief, I'm sure you have a unique and deep appreciation for the devastation caused by wildfires. One of my highest priorities is to find solutions to help Oregonians address the challenges of wildfires. On the House Committee on Agriculture, one of my top Farm Bill priorities is to properly equip our firefighters to get these wildfires under control and prevent them from getting out of hand in the first place. So far, I am championing 9 legislative items in the Congress to tackle these important issues, and this is an issue that I will continue to focus on. In 2020, the state of Oregon experienced its most devastating wildfire season on record, the Labor Day fires, which actually began in August and lasted until November. According to the Oregon Department of Emergency Management, the wildfires burned over 1 million acres, about the area of Rhode Island, affected 20 counties, destroyed or damaged over 5,000 structures, and resulted in over $600 million in damage across the state. The city of Detroit in Marion County was especially devastated by the fires, and my office continues to work with the city to help that community and region recover. In fact, this location was a required stop for my new staff. I had DC go to Oregon to understand what was most important to me and to visit as we set up our new offices. One specific area of frustration brought to my attention concerns Detroit's application to obtain unobligated funds for a water treatment plant. This process continued and has continued for 3 years after the fires. Detroit dutifully completed their paperwork and met FEMA's engineering requirements. However, high turnover at FEMA has forced the city to re-explain the application and re-justify each aspect of the project multiple times. The application's for $5.7 million. Completing the federal paperwork and meeting standards is hard enough, but how is it fair to require a small community to essentially recomplete it over and over again for 3 years? So my question to you is, can you offer any assurances today that FEMA will give the pending application full and fair consideration?
Absolutely, Representative. I will follow up on this personally and ensure that this application is reviewed and that we are giving it full and fair consideration based on the application that is submitted.
I'm happy to follow up. I'm happy to meet with you offline. You know, one of the things I like to do is open my office to get the work done. We have to move the ball down the field, and oftentimes after testimonies like this, it doesn't happen. So I'm committed to get this application moved forward. Regarding the high turnover, what steps can FEMA take to help ensure the agency is able to retain basic institutional knowledge when someone leaves? And then how can we reduce the burden on the applicant to bring someone new up to speed on an application such as this?
The retention and the recruitment of our workforce is so critical. The majority of the personnel that we have, again, are our reservists, and they are the backbone of what we do, which is why we are very grateful to Congress for the passing of the CREW Act, which gives them USERRA protections, and we have now a broader pool of people that I feel that we can recruit from. And I have talked to reservists firsthand out in the field about how they are already benefiting from this piece of legislation, which is increasing the number of reservists that we can potentially count on. We're also offering new incentives. We're offering recruitment bonuses as well as administrative time off for our reservists after they demobilize. These little steps, I think, are also increasing the desire of our workforce to be able to bring in new people, but also helping them understand that we are there for them and that we recognize the value that they bring, and that makes them excited about their continued work in supporting survivors before, during, and after disasters.
Mr. Chairman, I see my time's going to expire, so I'll yield back.